Another week closer to the start of the season, man. We're just a couple weeks away from week zero. Man, I'm so excited. It's been nice to get some preseason football in the NFL, just some football going on the TV, and really just getting into the swing of things, getting back into the vibe of it. But um, obviously, the main thing here in college football is fall camp and all these teams having their scrimmages this past weekend and just preparing for their opening games just a couple of weeks away. But before we break down all that is to come, pause. Let me welcome my boy,
Here you
my
go.
co-host Stefan. Steph, my guy, what's the vibes? How you feeling? Another week closer.
Man, the vibes is really good right now. I'm hearing a lot of good things coming out of Oregon's camp so far. I don't know what the vibes were in regards to recruiting last time we spoke, but I'm pretty sure right now we have the highest average rating of our recruiting class. So we definitely made some big splashes and recently, and things are looking good in that department. So I'm just ready for the season to start. Every day is getting closer and closer. So you know, I'm ready. Like you said, preseason football is on TV. There's been things going on in that regard. Players already flashing. So you know, I'm just ready.
All right. Well, we got another big episode to get into this week. We will be diving into the ACC. If it's your first time listening to us, what we do here on this channel, on this podcast, we at the preseason, we'll just do a tier list, and that gives us a chance to talk about each and every team, put them on our tier list where we expect them to really do the season. Talk a little bit about their schedule, talk a little bit about we feel like they're power rated, and then we place them where we believe. And yeah, it's just our fun way of just breaking down each conference, so it doesn't have to be all just boring, stale, same topics and talk. But we'll talk about the ACC today, and then at the end of the episode, we'll wrap it up with the AP Top 25 poll release. Obviously, um, college football poll is the one that matters the most towards the end of the year, but for the first half of the year, the college football world does abide by that AP Top 25 poll. So we'll talk a little bit about it. Um, doesn't really affect much as it is the preseason poll, but just another talking point to get through. But like I said, we got the entire ACC to break down, all these teams to talk about, and I'm excited, man. The ACC surprised us last year, man, in many different ways. Obviously, SMU, a surprise team making it all the way into the playoffs, and then the ACC also getting two teams into the playoffs with Clemson also not as big as a surprise as SMU making the playoffs, but also making the playoffs as well. And then we had a team like Florida State, for example, who a lot of people had looking to be a good team last year after that undefeated season, and they wound up going 2-10. Miami, they emerged with Cam Ward as he broke out, and they look to continue to build. So I thought that's a pretty exciting conference, and that's not even mentioning teams like Syracuse, Pittsburgh, Louisville, UNC. Like, this is a very, very interesting conference, and like I mentioned, I'm really excited to dive in. And we're going to start with the cream of the crop at the top um, with Clemson. And I think Clemson is a team that, if you follow along this podcast for the past couple of years, I've had pretty high expectations of. I think I've been a couple years early on it. I think now that this cycle has that was 20 got a couple years ago that really made me so excited. Now that they finally, began to cook and simmer and really grow as a unit, as a team, I think this is as dangerous as they can be. And it starts with the quarterback, obviously, with Klubnik. He's a senior, a whole bunch of starts, a whole bunch of games um, coming back. We know what he is. Now, obviously, he's not some all-world beater. I think he still does have room for improvement, but I always like to say, like in college football, like by the time you're a senior, you are what you are. Like he maxed out at who he is going to be in college. Now, once he gets to the NFL, I believe there may be another step that he can take, and I do believe he could be a good quarterback in the NFL. But like, I don't know how much better he's going to get um, from last year to this year. Now, that doesn't mean he cannot play better because he can be more consistent. He can be a better leader, and he can contribute to the team in ways that they needed, as we saw towards the end of last year when he really started to take over and take off. Um, but I really think it's not all on his shoulders as it kind of was in the past. I think they should have a talented backfield as they usually do, but it's really that receiving corps that does it for me. I mean, they have three guys that can potentially go for 1,000 yards. I mean, and that's not something that I think anybody would even have thought of Clemson since back when they had Sammy Watkins was like a decade ago. It's been a while since Clemson has had caliber wide receivers or this many of this caliber wide receiver. Antonio Williams Jr., T.J. Moore, Brian Westco. Those are three bona fide stars in college football, and all three of them are looking to play on Sundays. And then, obviously, no slouch on the offensive line. A bunch of veteran presence. I think they start four seniors on the offensive line, and the same goes for the defense. Just bringing back the entire defense, led by T.J. Parker and Peter Woods. A super strong secondary as usual. I think this is really the year for Clemson to strike, if there ever is going to be a year. Um, but I don't know. They've been an interesting team. I think they're clearly an S tier team in the ACC, maybe even all of college football. So I'm going to put them in the S tier. But I just rambled for a while about Clemson. Steph, take it away. What are your thoughts about Clemson?
Yeah, I kind of feel the same way about you. I mean, they're coming in. I think the preseason AP poll was dropped today. They're number four. Um, they won the ACC last year after a kind of up and down season. Um, they did make the playoffs, so they're the reigning ACC champions, and they have a lot of good players returning. They look like they're going to be able to have a pretty deep playoff run this year. So I'm going to have to put them in S tier as well. I mean, there's really nothing you could say to put them in a lower tier. I mean, they won the league. They got a lot of people coming back.
How do you feel
Yeah.
about? Sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead.
I was. How do you feel about their schedule? They open up obviously week one with LSU. That's a huge matchup. They got road games at Georgia Tech, at North Carolina, at Boston College, and at Louisville, and the end of the year at South Carolina. So a tough road slate there. And then they get Florida State, Duke, SMU, and Q's at home. So a couple cupcakes in there with Troy and Furman, but even those two teams are still pretty solid programs within their own right. Obviously, should not or will not beat Clemson, but just thought I would throw them in there as well, just to say that. But yeah, that's a tough schedule, man. Opening up LSU
Yeah.
and that ACC slate, like we mentioned, this is not a slouch conference as it once was. I mean, do you think
Yeah. I
they?
mean, well, the good
Yeah.
thing is LSU and South Carolina are non-con games, so that obviously affects them in regards to playoffs. But for the conference, they still have a pretty tough slate. Like you said, they play a lot of the better teams in the league. SMU, Georgia Tech. Those are teams that think that they want to have a shot at this thing. So they got Duke, who had a solid season last year. Um, they're still kind of an unknown to me. I mean, it's year two of Manny Diaz. They brought in Darian Mensah at quarterback. Let's see if that's an improvement over what they had last year with Malik Murphy. Um, yeah, Clemson does have a pretty tough schedule. Um, we've seen last year who did they slip up against? They lost to Louisville
Mm-hmm.
at home. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, this team is not immune to a slip up, but I think that this is a team, a program, a culture that you can count on to be one of those teams that's up there at the end of the season, fighting for a spot at the ACC championship game.
I definitely agree. I think those are all solid takes. Let's continue along then. Clemson definitely a team that I'm favoring to win this conference right now, but a lot can change before the season starts. Continuing along though, let's talk about the other playoff team from last year. That's SMU. SMU, obviously, um, lost a lot of players, but hit the portal hard again, and still are bringing back some pretty important pieces. Obviously, the main piece being Kevin Jennings Jr. Kevin Jennings, that quarterback that really elevated them last year. Obviously, had a tough out against that Penn State defense, but so did most other teams throughout the entire year. They bring back three NFL prospects on the offensive line, so return a bunch of production there. Although we do obviously expect them to take a little bit of a step back at that running back position, losing Brashard Smith and uh, and Knighton and somebody else. I know they added Chris Johnson from Miami and T.J. Harden from UCLA, but obviously Brashard Smith, what he was able to do for that team with that being a Swiss Army knife, just being able to do it all. That's kind of hard to replace. Um, Wide receiver, they bring back some production there, and I know they're pretty excited about some of the true freshmen that they have. Um, but I I don't know how much they are going to really have out wide this year. But I said the same thing last year, and they had enough firepower to almost win a playoff game. So um, on the defensive side of the ball, I think their defensive line, which is what I think a lot of people didn't realize, SMU had such depth at. That's why they were so good last year. The D line really just dominated. The front seven was very dominant. They had a great pass rush. They had to stop the run really well. Well, they lose a lot. I think they lose majority of their players on the defensive line. I think they brought in a whole bunch in the portal as well, but that might be a unit that's going to take some time to mesh well. So I think schedule is definitely going to play a factor um, into how well this defense is going to play. I know they bring back um, pretty much everybody in the secondary. Um, so that's good, and that should help if the defensive line, isn't getting as much pressure. Hopefully, the defensive backs are good enough, to hold up. But I think SMU still looks to contend to be one of the top teams in this conference. I think with the strong offensive line, and Rhett Lashley, one of my favorite coaches from last year, one of the guys that I maybe would have put a vote in for coach of the year. I think he'll be able to scheme stuff up. I think Kevin Jennings is dynamic enough at quarterback position that they're going to be a scary offense. They're going to be a scary team to face. They're going to be able to put up points. Are they going to be able to contend at the line of scrimmage like they did last year? I think that'll be the key. Um, but That's what building a program is all about. I don't know, Steph. What are your thoughts on SMU? Where would you rate them? Because I don't know where I would rate them. I kind of feel like they're an A tier, but maybe also leaning towards a B.
Yeah, I kind of feel like I want to put them at bottom of S or top of A, but I'm leaning towards top of A tier just because they did lose the ACC championship game. It was a dogfight though, and it came down to what, a field goal, and they did kind of get beat up pretty bad in that playoff game. But I think this is a team that should be right in the mix again this year. Um, like you said, they have a lot coming back. Kevin Jennings, I think R.J. Maryland is a really good tight end. He single
Right. I
handedly
didn't even mention them.
won them
Yeah.
that game against, like, it was Nevada or Utah State last year, in the beginning of the season. So um, I think this team should be one of the better teams in the conference as well. So I'm going to put them in A. I mean, just because it is SMU, we haven't really seen them have much sustained success at the power forward level. So I'm gonna have to put them in the A tier, but I am pretty positive about them, and it wouldn't be a
Yeah.
surprise to me if the ACC championship game was a rematch of Clemson and SMU.
I could definitely see that being a possibility as well. And I will say, um, they weren't yet in the ACC, but 2 years ago in 2023, they did go 11-3 as well. So that's back-to-back years where they went 11-3. Um, Before that, obviously, like you mentioned, a lot of up and downs, not as sustained success, but we'll see. I think if they definitely compete this year for a ACC title, I think SMU is definitely here to stay. I will mention though, their schedule is tough. Two out of their first, or all four of their first games are out of conference, so they have 4 games out of conference, and then they have a bye. But two of those games are against in-state rivals, Baylor and TCU. So that's not even those are. I like that. First off, I would like to say I love that. as a Gator fan, we'll talk about Miami, we'll talk about Florida State in a little bit, but I love that we all play each other, and it just makes our schedules better. You know what I mean? Like it's an out of conference game, but it's still an in-state rival. It still means something, and um, I'm very excited actually for that SMU Baylor and SMU TCU game. So, um, but to see those two games before your ACC slate even begins, which includes going to Clemson, I think that's going to be tough. Um, Now, I think they get most of their other tough games at home, which is a break. They get Syracuse at home right after a bye. Um, they get Miami at home. They get Louisville at home right after a bye. So I think it does set up for them, and I agree with you. I'm going to put them in the A tier. But this is a schedule they're definitely going to have to figure out how to navigate for sure. Next team we will be discussing is the Miami Hurricanes. Um, a new look Hurricanes. Obviously, last year Cam Ward came over and he played his way into becoming the number one pick. But outside of that, not really much to show for last season. Didn't make the title game, didn't win their bowl game either. So a bit of a sour taste left in the mouth of Miami and the whole organization and fans. A lot of work to do. They brought over Carson Beck from Georgia um, as he looks to kind of steady the ship as losing a guy like um, Cam Ward, who was your whole engine, obviously is going to affect that offense. But um, Carson Beck is experienced. He's played in a lot of games. He's played in a lot of big games against a lot of good teams. Um, don't know how good he really is, or if I really believe he's any good, but um, he shouldn't have wide eyes out there. Doesn't mean he won't have wide eyes out there, but he shouldn't have wide eyes out there. They bring back a pretty strong running back room led by Mark Fletcher. Um, a lot of speed out on the outside. Malachi Tony, C.J. Daniels, JoJo Trader, and then maybe the best offensive line in the ACC, maybe one of the best offensive lines in the entire country. It's always been one of Mario Cristobal's um, things that he's always going to have at whatever university, whatever school he is coaching at, is going to be pretty strong offensive line play, and I expect that. And I expect the defensive line to be just as good, to be honest. Led by Ruben Bain. I mean, that guy's a certified freak. I think he had a little bit of a down year, maybe a sophomore slump, um, if you will. But I think the talent is just there. Him, Wesley Basaint. They brought over Rutgers transfer Mohamed Toure, and I'll tell you firsthand, that guy is another freak. He should be in the NFL. I don't know why he's still playing college football, but um, that's not mentioning their star freshman, or he's a sophomore now, Frederique, OJ Frederique, had a great freshman year last year. So Xavier Lucas coming over from Wisconsin. We talked about that whole lawsuit. So on paper, I think this Miami team is definitely loaded, definitely talented, experienced. A lot of these guys have played on this team now, have played with each other now for quite some time. So I think this is another Miami team that should be contending for this ACC title. And we all know Miami has been in the ACC now for what? My whole entire life? Not my whole entire life,
Basically,
but basically.
it's been
And
20 years.
yeah, I'm 27, so I remember when I was a kid they were in the Big East, and then and they haven't won. That the last time they won a conference title was the Big East. That is to put it into perspective for you folks listening to this podcast. Think about when the last time you watched Big East football was. So Miami's a team that I got to see it. Like I said, on paper they're a great roster, but another thing that I didn't mention either is Mario Cristobal. I talked to him about him having a good offensive line, but Mario Cristobal is a notorious horrible game day coach. Just when it comes to just decision making, clock management, timeout usage, player management. He just doesn't seem to really have a feel for the game at times. Um, and I think that's something that he needs to address himself, or he needs to get people around him that do have that feel that can help navigate that during the game day and during the in-game environment. Because I think coaching no matter how no matter how talented Miami is, right? If the coaches don't coach talent up, it's not going to work out. I say all this because I am low key a Miami hater, but I think Miami is a clear S tier team. I think the talent is there, the S tier, but I just that's a team that you just can't trust. So Steph, you take it away. Where would you place them? Break down Miami. Give me your thoughts about all the team, the players.
Yeah, I mean, I never seen somebody call a timeout before a kickoff until the Mario Cristobal experience. So, that's all I got to say about that. But I'm going to be honest, I don't have them in S tier.
Okay.
For me, it was more about A tier versus B tier. Now,
Oh,
I'm gonna
whoa,
go with A tier because they did go 10-2 last year, and if you're winning 10 games regular season, by the way, I gotta give you at least A tier. But Cam Ward is gone,
yep.
and he is a way better quarterback than Carson Beck, healthy. Now, mind you, Carson Beck had a lot of problems last year, and a lot of them were not his fault. We know about the drops from the wide receivers at Georgia. I think they led the country in drops. Um, but we also know that Carson Beck is not really the type of quarterback that elevates a team. I think he's a good college quarterback. But one thing you didn't mention is Carson Beck is going to have a new arm this year. I mean, he got injured in that SEC championship game, missed all of spring ball because of the injury. I mean, what did he get? He got Tommy John surgery. It was something with the
Something
elbow.
like that. Yeah.
I forgot the exact injury, but he's missing all this time. I think he's back for fall camp, but you're coming in as a transfer quarterback. You need that spring ball to really get a feel with your receivers, and then we don't even know if he's going to be able to put the same power behind his passes as he was before. So I don't really know how I feel about him. Like that's really my main concern. I think even if his arm is weak, I think they're still gonna be a solid team because, like you said, they have good players. Pretty much all over the place on that team. But I also think that there's just that factor of how you can't trust Miami. There's just something about Miami, and there's a few teams in the country like this where they might have good players, even a good coach, but they just can't seem to get over the hump of winning a conference, making a deep playoff run, doing things like that. Like, look what happened last year. And it was against your team. Miami walked into the swamp and destroyed Florida. But then you're up against Syracuse by 21 points and figure out how to lose that game. I don't understand how a team like that can have two different performances like that in the same season.
Hmm.
And then losing the game against Georgia Tech where they just got manhandled, you know, um, and they weren't really able to do anything on offense to be able to pull away. So I don't know. Like I gotta put them in the A tier until I see something else. Um, I can't put them in S tier if I can't trust you. If I can't trust you to play at your best and not do dumb stuff during the game, I can't put you in S tier. Because sometimes, look, every team is going to lose games. It happens. But it's about how you lose. Sometimes another team is just better, or another coach just makes a better decision in that moment. But when you have this type of situation where, you have the constant mismanagement of the clock and the timeouts, and then, this team has never, this program under Mario Cristobal has never made a conference title game, won a conference. We don't even have to talk about 20 years because I'm worried about right now. Under this regime, they've gotten better and better each year, but still, I need to see conference title appearance or playoff appearance, something like that. Um, and I haven't. So I can't trust the team. I don't really trust the quarterback with the injury situation. Maybe they'll prove me wrong. Maybe Carson Beck lights the world on fire this year, and Miami makes the ACC title game. But I got to put them in A.
All
Like
right.
I think an 8-4 season is more likely than like a 10 or 11 win season, in my opinion.
Yeah, let's talk a little about their schedule because I think that plays a big factor into your argument. Like, I think that sounds crazy when you just think about the roster and you just think about what Miami has on their team. But I mean, they open up week one against Notre Dame,
Yep.
so good luck. Um, then they play USF before playing Florida. USF obviously should beat, but we saw what USF did to Alabama last year, and we see what
Byron
they do to
Brown is
teams.
back, by the way.
Yeah, yeah, you know what I mean. And I don't expect them to really, you know what I mean. But you got Notre Dame and Florida in your first four games. Then you go to Florida State. You get Louisville, so you still have to, that's a tough game. You get them at home at least. That's a Friday night game, so a short week. Then you have to go to SMU. You're at home back against Syracuse and NC State, which helps. Um, but then you end the year at Tech and at Pitt. So that's a little bit dangerous. Those, especially those last two games at Virginia Tech, at Pittsburgh, two good teams, two tough environments. I think this sets up a little bit better for Miami though, because I think towards the end of the year they kind of got caught sleeping when they should have been powering through to make it towards the ACC championship. I think this schedule will kind of keep them on their P's and Q's throughout the whole year and keep them at a steady incline instead of peaking too early. Whereas they peaked week one, 41-17. They beat Florida at home. And then what else did they do last year? Win 10 games like 50 other teams did. So,
Yeah, I mean they were in a dogfight with Cal where they were down 25 and had to come back
yeah. I
and
mean, it was
win
their
that.
best season ever, though. They act like that. They were champions last year, and again, they didn't even make it to the ACC championship game. They
Yeah.
lost the Pop Tart Bowl. They
Yep.
don't have any hardware to show for that season besides Cam Ward being first overall draft pick, which is nice, but that's more individual than
Mm-hmm.
you know. Anyways, Miami and A, they have a lot more to lose than gain at this point. It feels like there's a lot of pressure on that team there. Let's talk about a team that there's not a lot of pressure on, and a team that might surprise some folks this year. Although it might be time to kind of take that off of them. Like no more surprises. Maybe they're just good, and maybe they just need to we need to talk about them like they're a good team. And I'm talking about Georgia Tech. Um, Bringing
Mm.
back Haynes King, obviously the heart and soul of that team, the heart and soul of that offense. Um, I think Georgia Tech actually is a little bit of a weird team. You know, I think they lost
Mm-hmm.
a lot of players. Not I think I know they lost a lot of players. Um, so in that way, like they should take a step back, but like at the same time, I think this is their best team that they've had. If you know what I mean? Like yeah, they lost Eric Singleton. Yeah, I mean they lost not just Eric Singleton. They lost a bunch of production on the outside. Um, they lost a bunch of production on the offensive line and defensive line as well. But I think they replaced them with the right kind of guys, and I think they already had guys in the program that are going to step up and be able to contribute this year. I think Brett Key is a phenomenal coach, and like I mentioned, while I think the offensive line is a little bit of a question mark heading into the season, I think when that guy's your coach, it doesn't. You really shouldn't have to worry about O line for the most part. I think they're going to figure it out. And again, if you're sleeping on Georgia Tech, you should not sleep on them. I mean, Haynes King at quarterback, like I mentioned, Jamal Hayes, he's coming back for his senior year at running back. I think he really broke out of his shell last year, and I think um, he should continue to take that next step. They added um, the offensive player of the year from the Ivy League at running back. What's the guy's name? Malachi Hosley. Um, so adding another talented running back in that backfield to kind of just take some of the load off of Jamal Haynes so that he doesn't have to carry the ball 30 times a game. He can have more fresh legs and be able to contribute and dominate more. Then on the outside, obviously, it's hard to replace a guy like Eric Singleton now that he is off at Georgia, I think, um,
Auburn.
Auburn. But now um, they brought over first team All Conference USA member Eric Rivers, um, former FIU wideout, guy's all flat out baller. Um, I want Florida to get this kid. I think he's going to be a great replacement and really add a lot of production um, to that wide receiver room. They're bringing back Malik Rutherford, who they've already had for a few years in that system. He should continue to take that next step and to have more production, as well as Isaiah Canyon. He's a freshman from last year, or I guess a rising sophomore now, who they expect to step up. So, as well as I think they're pretty excited about their tight end as well. Um, Other than that, though, I think they made the right moves on defense. They added a couple of transfer linebackers that who should come in and start right away. One from Georgia, E.J. Lightsley Jr., and then Kyle Effort Jr., formerly from Oregon State. They bring back a bunch of other people on that defense outside of that. So 7 returning members on their defense. The other guys are bona fide starters in the portal. So like I mentioned, they they lost some people, but this roster seems very stable and like ready to compete. Um, do you think they're ready to compete? Do you think Georgia Tech does compete? Um, do you like this roster? What are your thoughts?
I think they do. I have to see it. We know what type of player Haynes King is. We know what type of player Jamal Haynes is. We know what style of football this team plays. I mean, and y'all know I love watching this team play. I love the offense that they run. I think it's going to be tough. There's other good teams in this conference, and we know how at a place like Georgia Tech, it's harder to get a lot of the good and best players. But I think that this team this year has a chance to be extremely successful. So right now I'm gonna have to put them in A. I mean not A. Sorry. I think we might have expectations of them to be in A tier type of team, but right now I'm gonna have to put them in B, maybe the top of B. Like I think they're gonna go bowling for sure, but can they take that next step with the returning quarterback, with the returning running back? Like you said, they lost Eric Singleton, but they still got guys on the outside. I think this team could do some damage in the ACC, man. Especially when you can't trust teams like Miami. Who knows what can happen? So I'm gonna have to put them in B tier, but I wouldn't be surprised if they end up being better than that.
I think that's completely fair. Um, let's continue through. We got a whole bunch of teams in the ACC to get to. Next team we are going to talk about is Florida State. Um, Obviously, 2024 an absolute disaster after a spectacular 2023. Um, Looking to bounce back here in 2025, but the roster just doesn't inspire me. It doesn't make me feel like they will be. I think it's kind of hard not to be improved from 2-10. You know what I mean? And I think this team on paper is obviously good enough to go bowling and maybe even win 8 games, but um, I'm not any more inspired than that. Like at quarterback, bringing over Thomas Castellanos from Boston College. Um, just not super excited about that guy. Had his flashes, had his moments at Boston College for sure, but as Boston College continued to improve and continue to win, they continue to distance themselves from that guy. So that just kind of already gives me a red flag and just puts alerts off in my head. Just maybe he's not the guy now. Different situation, different set of people, different room. He could improve. It could work. I'm not gonna knock it, and I think it'll be better than what they had last year, for sure. Um, but yeah, I don't know how much of a ceiling or floor raiser he is. I think he'll just come in and he'll contribute and he'll be a part of whatever Gus Malzahn has built. And I think that's a key to this team as well. Uh, the coordinators, Gus Malzahn coming over, leaving UCF and that train wreck and that disaster, doing another to doing another one in Mike Norvell. But UCF did have a pretty solid run game, um, and as during his tenure there, and I think he'll be able to definitely implement that at Florida State and at least get their running game back on track. Um, and then Tony White coming over from Nebraska, he had a top 20 defense over there a couple years now, and I think that's really where the key to improvement for this Florida State team is going to be. I think this defense really has to take that next step up, and I think they have some players to do so. KJ Kirkland, Earl Little Jr., um, what's his name? Deontay McCray, Daryl Jackson. Some of those guys can play or have talent, um, but they need the defensive coordinator to really coach them up, and we'll really see what can happen with Florida State. Right now, I'm not feeling anything more than a C tier. I think they're gonna go bowling, and again, maybe if all goes right, they win 8 games, which will get them in the B tier, 9 games, maybe. But I don't really see them contending for the ACC this year. I'd be shocked.
Yeah, I'm putting them in a D tier. Um,
D.
yeah, I cannot
Oh,
listen. I'm not. I don't feel good about this team. After the disaster of last season, they basically clean house for everybody except for Mike Norvell because they can't. Um, you bring in Gus Malzahn, who had a dumpster fire going at UCF, had a dumpster fire before. I mean, look, 2013 Auburn, legendary, one of the most legendary football teams, probably one of the best and most exciting football teams to not win a national championship. Um, but that was a long time ago. After that, it kind of went downhill at Auburn, and since then, it's kind of just been train wreck after train wreck. And I really don't expect much from this team. Like I know he's just a coordinator and not the head coach, but to me, this seems like a bunch of train wrecks coming together. You got Thomas Castellanos, who got ran out of Boston College because he can't throw. Like we know what type of player he is. He's super athletic, can run, he's fast, but he can't throw the ball very well at all. And we know that Bill O'Brien can coach some football, and he had their offense going pretty good with Castellanos and not really able to throw the ball. But it doesn't really matter how much you can run the ball if you just can't throw it at all. So they ended up making a quarterback change, mid-season. I think they were better off for it. I think the other guy that they had in there was better. Like if you can make better throws and you can run the ball, you're going to be more balanced. And if you're not necessarily running your quarterback all the time, now you're not really worried about your quarterback getting injured as much. So I just think it was a win-win from Boston College, and I don't really expect much from Florida State. I mean, like you said, they might go bowling. I mean, you can't really do worse than 2-10, but I don't really expect much. I just think this has been a culture of that's just been too transient. Mike Norvell has relied on the portal, and we've seen it work the one year, but then the year after that, it didn't work at all because when you bring in a team full of guys that don't really care about that school, they don't really want to be at Florida State. They're just going somewhere for a check, or they just their one chance to do something. As soon as the season goes left a little bit, they're gonna be checked out mentally, and we saw that. I mean, they didn't even make it out of, what was that? Was that Ireland that game was last year?
yeah.
Like they didn't even make it out of Ireland, and because they lost to Georgia Tech, it was like the sky was falling after that point because you come in the year after Florida State won the conference and quite frankly got screwed by the playoff, but now you feel okay, it's the 12-team playoff, we should definitely be in there. We got good players, things like that. DJ Uyunglele had a good season at Oregon State. Like, what can go wrong? And then you lost to Georgia Tech I guess week 0, and it seemed like they could never even pick it up from there. I mean, what they didn't they lose to Memphis? I mean, it was just terrible. It was like every week you just knew unless it was an FCS team, they was probably gonna lose. So I don't really think that this team is gonna do much better this year. Like I said, Castellanos really short. He can run, but can't really throw the ball well. Um, Mike Norvell, I don't know. I don't necessarily think he's a bad coach. I just think that he can't really recruit. I mean, for some reason, Florida State just has trouble bringing in good high school players. Like, I don't know what it is. Like, you're trying to rely on the portal. And it seems like as the years go on, the portal thing is kind of starting to slow down. And I don't mean that
Yeah.
there's less players entering the portal. I mean that there's less good players entering the portal because what are you seeing from all these coaches around the country? They're talking about roster retention, right? So a lot of times they're not using the NIL money to go out and get the next hot thing out the portal. They're using it to keep the good players that they have. So you're seeing good players stick around on their teams instead of just jumping in the portal because at the end of the day, most of us want stability in our lives. We don't want to get a new job every 6 months. We don't want to move to a new location every year. We don't want to do things like that in our lives. So, you're seeing the same thing with a lot of these college players. Like, if they're getting paid, they're more likely to stay, even if somewhere else offers more money to go leave. But do I want to move to another coast? Do I want to have to learn a new playbook? Learn a new college, new teammates, new everything. Just uprooting myself to go to a new place when I'm still getting paid where I am and I'm playing and things are going relatively well. So I just I don't really feel positive about this team, man. That's why they're gonna have to be in the bottom tier for me, the D tier. I just don't really. I think they'll probably have a better record than 2-10, but I don't think they're gonna be competitive for the ACC title game at all. And they might be though they. And when you factor in the talent that the team has versus the production, they might be the worst in that regard because there's teams in this conference we know like Wake Forest and Stanford that just don't have good players and they're
Anybody.
gonna they're gonna stink.
Yeah.
But Florida State constantly they do get some good recruits. They have access to 4-star talent, you know, and things like that. So, but they just don't even give you any return for the talent that they get. So yeah, like I'm just if I'm a Florida State fan, don't get excited. Cause this team ain't gonna win nothing significant. Not this year. Not with Gus Malzahn. Come on, bro. It's been a long time since he's done anything good as a football coach.
All right, let's keep it moving then with the next team being Louisville. Louisville, it's another interesting team that's kind of built through the transfer portal. We were just talking a little bit, like you just said a few seconds ago, a few minutes ago, that's kind of trending away. So this is another team that was already not feeling great on, and still feeling a little bit that way. I don't feel horrible on them because obviously they return an outstanding running back duo led by Isaac Brown, but Duke Watson, he's no slouch either. He's incredible and would start a lot of other Power Four schools. Um, so those two should really lead the way. But we need an offensive line to block and to open holes for those guys to run through, and um, they're only returning one starter. Now they are returning, or they are bringing in a second team, all conference player at guard, and everybody else they are bringing in to start on that offensive line is pretty experienced as well. They have 203 total career starts um, between the five of them. But offensive line is a big unit that needs cohesion. The whole five equals one, you know. Um, that is a unit that needs time to gel, that needs reps together and chemistry. And while that is something they can definitely gain and acquire throughout the off season and spring and summer and fall workouts and camps, when you're actually out there in the fire against another team, it's a whole different ball game. So I'm interested to see how that offensive line is going to perform. And it's the same goes for the defensive line. I mean, they lost a bunch of starters. Um, Now they did bring back a couple more players than the offensive line, but I don't really expect defensive line to be great. And the same with the defensive back units. They bring over first team conference USA member JoJo Evans at one of the cornerback, at the safety position, but outside of him, there just doesn't seem to be a lot of cohesion, and that makes me nervous for Louisville and that whole entire defense. I think Miller Moss is an okay addition at quarterback. He fried them in the bowl game, and they're like, all right, if he fried us, we should take him. But I don't know if you should really feel like that means anything if your defense is not that good. And I don't really think it's going to be that good. I think Louisville is going to be another a lot of shootouts again, and that's fun football, and that might get them 8 wins. Um, but outside of that, I don't see much more. So I like them in the B tier along with Georgia Tech, but I don't know. Do you think they're an A tier team? Do you have higher hopes for Louisville this year?
You put them in the B tier.
Yeah,
I was thinking more C tier, honestly. I mean, I think I'll still go with B tier because I think they're going to be bowling. We know that Miller Moss is a solid quarterback, but he got ran out of town in USC. Um, I just I don't really expect much from Louisville. I just know that they're not going to stink. And like you said, when you bring in a bunch of guys to be your offensive line out of the portal, it usually doesn't work out that well. So I'm gonna have to put them maybe in the middle or bottom of B tier.
yeah.
I
I think
think that this is like a 6-6 type of team.
Yeah, I think they get. I think they're going to get 7 or 8 wins. I think they're going to lose all the games they go on. They go to Pittsburgh, to Miami, to Virginia Tech, and to SMU, all throughout the season. I think they're probably going to lose three or maybe even all four of those, um, and then they're going to lose to Clemson probably at home as well. So that puts them around 7 wins, 6 wins. So honestly, C tier probably is more appropriate than the B tier, to be honest. I'm with you on that. I don't have much faith in them, um, except for Isaac Brown. I mean, I think that guy might be the best running back in the country potentially. I don't know. Who knows? Maybe, but um, can't just be that guy alone. Need some help. Um, moving along though, North Carolina, and the reason I sigh is because I really don't have a single clue what to think about North Carolina. Um, they're legit a wild card team.
Yeah, we
Like
have no idea what they're gonna
they
look like.
they could be 2 wins. They could be 10 wins maybe. I don't know what's going to happen. I mean, Bill Belichick is a great coach, great football coach. Um, so I think if they respond to him and his coaching, I think if he's still the coach that he once was, I think they're going to be competent. But college football is about talent acquisition, and this is a team that doesn't have a lot of that right now. Um, I feel like putting them in the D tier is crazy, so I'll put them in the C tier. But like I don't really have much thoughts. I'm excited to watch them. I'll definitely be. This is a team that I'll definitely be tuned in to watch. Um, but yeah, sorry any North Carolina fans out there. I don't really have much preseason thoughts about your team. Um,
Yeah, we
I don't
just don't
know.
know anything.
Yeah, I don't know if you guys are like a team that's capable of going bowling or like I don't know. I don't know. Gio Lopez is your quarterback. I know him.
It's not Max Johnson.
Max
Wait,
Johnson left a while ago. No.
who am I thinking of? No, Max Johnson is on North Carolina. He's on North Carolina. Remember last year he was starting, but then he got injured.
Yeah, he got hurt. So it's probably a quarterback battle right now between
Yeah,
Max
it's
Johnson
probably a
and Gio
battle for
Lopez.
everything.
I just assumed it'll be Gio Lopez because they took him in the portal, but I guess that doesn't guarantee you a spot. But a quarterback like Gio Lopez, I'd assume he would go to a school he believed he had an opportunity to play at. I don't think he would
Yeah,
leave a starting job to go
absolutely,
sit the bench. So, but who knows?
absolutely.
Who knows? To be honest, grass ain't always greener, and he might have to find that out the hard way. But yeah, I don't. Again, um, I'll put them in the C tier. I don't know. Let's look at their schedule at least. See
Yeah, I think
what.
that's safe. I think C tier is just safe. We kind of just have to wait and see with them. Honestly, that's really
Yeah.
all there is to it.
Um, they open up TCU. They go to UCF. Uh, they get Clemson at home after a bye week. Um, they have to travel to Syracuse and to NC State to end the year. But other than that, they kind of avoid all of the top dogs in this conference. They get Clemson and Syracuse. Those are two teams we really expect to compete. And then Duke and NC State should be two solid teams. Um, yeah, I don't like. So again, I think the schedule. If North Carolina turns out to be good, I think they can win some games here. You know, and maybe do some damage. But I also see some games they could definitely lose and wind up with 7 losses, 8 losses again. So let's not spend too much time on them. Let's switch gears over um, to Pittsburgh this year. They return. They return 7 players on, um, or 8 players on offense, 8 players on defense. So bringing back a lot of guys from that team last year, and I don't know if that's a good thing because last year they were highly, highly disappointed. That was a team that I expected to truly maybe be a dark horse in that conference, and I think they had the talent, or have even still, to bringing back a lot of those guys. They have the talent to do so. Um, it just it just did not come together at all. Just sloppy, uninspired, low effort play, um, and it just left a bad feeling, a bad taste in my mouth. I just don't like how it left off. I think again this year they have a chance. It starts off at the quarterback position. I think Eli Holstein is a very solid quarterback. I think he's one of the better quarterbacks in this conference. Uh, I think he's very up and down, and he was very inconsistent. I think that kind of led to a lot of their problems last year, just not having a steady hand, steady force at that quarterback position. But another year, second year to be developed, back in that same system. We'll see. We'll see how it works out. I think their defense was another unit last year that kind of disappointed me. Um, I think their D line is much more experienced this year and should be much stronger than it was last year. I mean, it feels like we say that about every team, but I mean that's football. You need strong trenches, and Pitt was not strong in the trenches last year, especially on the defensive side of the ball. And we all know Pittsburgh is known for having good trench players, so that was a bit surprising. Um, I don't know. They have a tough schedule. They play Notre Dame, they play Miami, um, they play Louisville, they play Florida State and Syracuse on the road, play Georgia Tech at West Virginia. So I'm not really expecting them to do much this year, but I think they're a bit talented. I think they're probably C tier, but I want them to be B tier in my heart.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to go with C tier till I see it. They definitely have a chance to be B tier, but yeah, I'm not really confident in that.
Next team we shall discuss is NC State. NC State, obviously, quarterback got hurt. What's his name? What was his face? Grayson McCall.
Grayson McCall, yep.
He got hurt. So tough year for them. They went what 6-7. This year they bring in C.J. Bailey at quarterback. He's a rising sophomore. Was in the system last year. Um, he's a big guy, 6'6". He was a little bit skinny, but I think he gained some weight now. And I know a lot of people are excited for the kind of talent that this kid is. I mean, when you watch him play, it kind of just jumps off the screen how dynamic he is, not only as a passer but as a runner. He's a huge kid as well. So um, I think he has a chance to really be a special player and just change this entire NC State offense. Um, Outside of him, though, Um, I don't know where else they really get the production from on the offensive side of the ball. Um, the talent is there in the running back room. Um, in the wide receiver room, they lost their best wide receiver, Casey Concepcion, um, but they didn't really use him either. So I don't really know who is their offensive coordinator. They got a new one actually. The new offensive coordinator is Kurt Roper, who has been an assistant at NC State since 2019, and they also have a new defensive coordinator in DJ Elliott, who was an NFL assistant in 24, and he was been the defensive coordinator at Temple, Kansas, Colorado, and Kentucky in the past. Um, so yeah, I think Kurt Roper is the key uh, to this NC State Wolfpack team. Their offense was horrid. Their play selection was horrid. They didn't use what they had last year, and I think that needs to change for sure. On the defense side of the ball, I don't know. Did they have a strong defense last year, Steph?
Um, they were supposed to, but then they got smacked by Tennessee. And then
Smacked
once
was an
their quarterback
understatement.
got hurt, it was kind of tough for them to kind of really do anything because they couldn't score at all.
They lost four starters in the secondary, so that's already a red flag. Um, I think their front seven should be okay, but I mean, losing all four starters in the secondary, that's gonna at least take them a couple games to really figure things out. I mean, they got a bunch of seniors back there in the projected starting lineup, so at least they'll have some experience. But I don't know how much experience they'll have together. So NC State, again, they're a team that I think could. So let's look at their schedule first before I start saying things. Open up with East Carolina, then they play Virginia at Wake Forest, at Duke, Virginia Tech at home, Campbell at home, at Notre Dame. Then they finally get their first bye week. And they go to Pittsburgh, Georgia Tech at home, bye week, Miami, Florida State, North Carolina. So no Clemson, no SMU, but they do draw Duke, Notre Dame, Miami, as well as some lower tier teams as well. So it's going to be another tough year for NC State, in my opinion. I think they're going to be in a lot of close games, a lot of dog fights, and they're going to be playing for bowl eligibility. So with that being said, that would put them along in the C tier.
Yeah, I think when you look at NC State, if this was a rating of, I guess, like the program's recent history, I would put them more towards B tier. But since they do have a lot of questions going into this season, I'm going to have to put them in C. I feel confident that they're going to go bowling, but are they going to get to 8 or 9 wins? I don't know. I think if they do get to 8 wins as a team, that would be a super successful season.
Mm.
And then going into 2026, I'll be talking about NC State being in the B tier.
All right, let's continue moving along. This next team we will discuss is Duke. Duke's an interesting team um, because I think they landed one of the more dynamic quarterbacks in the entire portal class this year, and I think he's going to instantly elevate their offense um, as he's just one of those players that makes the guys around him better. But I think they desperately need that because the guys around him definitely need to be better. I think bringing back Jacquez Moore and getting him back from injury at running back is going to be huge for that offense. And when Duke was at their best is when they can run that ball and rely on their offensive line. Um, but I definitely think some of these wide receivers are going to have to step up and make names for themselves, and they're going to need someone to break out and assist Darian Mensa because it would suck to get this incredible quarterback and then have no production on the outside to match what he is capable of doing. But just leading Tulane to 9 wins, throwing for almost 3,000 yards last year, 66% completion, 22 touchdowns to 6 interceptions. He just provides the experience, the stability, the explosiveness that you would want at quarterback. Um, the offensive line, they returned 4 starters and 82 career starts, so they should be much improved from last year. I think having a quarterback who's mobile and being able to move the pocket as well as escape the pocket like Darren Mensa should help any offensive line. Um, I think their defensive line is a little bit underrated. Um, they got some pretty good players, bringing in um, a two-time All Ivy League player um, on that D line. I think their secondary is always going to be strong, as it has been just coached well um, under their defensive coordinator, um, who's been there the past couple of years. I think Manny Diaz has a chance here to do some things. I don't expect them to really compete for the ACC, but I mean, I think they can match their 9 wins that they got last year. Maybe take another step, maybe a 10-win team. I think this is another team that's in that B tier with Georgia Tech finally.
Yeah, I think we have to put them in the B tier. Um, they had a real solid season last year, probably one of the best in Duke history. I think another year with Manny Diaz as coach, um, and I think they're going to be improved at quarterback. I think this is a team that could probably end up winning 8 or 9 games, man. I think they'll be one of those first teams that just missed the ACC title game this year.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, Manny Diaz, he's had pretty good success so far. I think a lot of people kind of laughed or scoffed a little bit when he got that Duke job.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I think he's proved why. And I think when you really look back at it, pause. Uh, I'm not gonna say he shouldn't have been fired from Miami because I think when you have a chance to get a guy like Mario Cristobal, who obviously played there, is from there, it just made sense to get Mario um, as your coach. But I mean, Manny Diaz, he wasn't a horrible coach at Miami. I think he maybe Miami had a little bit higher expectations, but I think Duke, again, I agree with you. I think they're going to surprise some folks. I think they're going to be really good. Um, let's continue to move forward. Next team we are going to talk about is Virginia Tech.
Oof.
Oof. Why do you say oof? What are your
They
thoughts?
flopped last year,
They
man. I
did.
don't have no expectations for this team. Well, maybe they go bowling. I'll put them in C tier. That's
You think they're C tier?
yeah.
Yeah. I like, obviously I like Kyron Drones, but he's a little bit of a running back. Let's be real. Um, they have to replace their entire running back room. Um, now they got a first team All MAC running back. They got another running back from Coastal Carolina as well, and then I think one of the top D2 running backs joining that room. But uh, nobody that really strikes fear into anybody's heart. At least going into week 1, maybe as the season goes along, one of those guys will break out. Same with the wide receiver room. I think they're going to regress. Um, as they lost some transfers. Um, Offensive line. Um, they lost a few offensive linemen as well, so they're less experienced. I think Virginia Tech is just a weak team overall. Um, they got to 6 wins last year. Um, I think Brent Pry has a chance to get his team back into a bowl game, but I don't know. I feel like this. I don't know why, but I feel like this could be a team that surprises, like a team that knows their identity and then they play to their identity. So like they win a game rather than a team that might be more talented, but like they don't have an identity yet. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And I think maybe if Virginia Tech, you know, just plays to who they are, maybe they can wind up being in that B tier. Their schedule isn't crazy when you at first glance. They open up at South Carolina, or not at, but versus South Carolina. Um, they play Vanderbilt as well, so two SEC teams to begin. Definitely a little bit of a tough start, but um, then they have two cupcakes before going to NC State to open up conference play. Then they have Wake Forest at home and then travel to Georgia Tech before their first bye. They will play against Cal and Louisville at home before having another bye and ending the season at Florida State, home against Miami, and then at Virginia. So not really a murderer's row there. Some tough games for sure, but I don't know. I don't. I feel like I don't know enough about Virginia Tech's defense to really truly make a great prediction. That's why I feel like they can surprise me. Like if their defense is strong and they can run the ball, why not? Why can't they win 8 games? You know what I mean? Why can't they win 9 games? They probably could or will. I just,
Have we ever seen that from the staff though?
well, that's a good point.
So
Yeah,
if I never seen it from this regime, I can't put them in that tier. I can't put you in a tier of something you never did. So right now I have to be put them in the C tier.
all right. Let's talk about Syracuse. Syracuse, um, it's another fun team, a team that I think we all probably expect um, to compete for a spot in the ACC title game. But Syracuse, they lost a lot. I don't think people realize they only returned 8 starters, um, with questions pretty much all across that offense. Um, I think you could have said the same um, about them last year, outside of the maybe the quarterback position, but and they were able to still have a good unit, a great unit actually. But um, I don't know. I don't expect them to really take a step back. Like I think Fran Brown hit the portal well. I think he got the pieces that he needed to bring in. I think he's a coach that develops well. So I expect um, the rising players, the players that are been in the system already to to actually produce. Um, but yeah, I think they have enough talent um, to definitely continue to compete. And I think that defense is going to be one of the better defenses in the ACC. Um, their defensive line, I think, is going to be dominant for sure. Their front seven in general, I think, should be very strong. I think their secondary, if there is going to be a place that it takes a step back, it is going to be that secondary. Um, but even then, Fran Brown's the secondary coach. I think he'll have that unit fine. Um, Steven Angeli, he's interesting at quarterback, coming over from Notre Dame, right? From Notre Dame.
Yep.
Yeah, we all got a glimpse of him. If you guys watch it, was it the national championship game or was it the playoff game, the semifinal game that he
It
came in?
was the playoff game against Penn State.
Yes, and he came in after what's his face went down with injury. Um, dang, why can't I think of his
Riley
name?
Leonard.
Yeah, Riley Leonard. I want to call that man Daniel Jones.
Oh my god.
Same quarterback, basically. Anyways, when Riley Leonard went down, Steve Angeli came in. He actually led Notre Dame to a crucial field goal drive to get them some points right before the half. Um, I think he's definitely talented, and we saw a glimpse of it there. So it'll be interesting to see. Had to remake their wide receiver room after they lost some guys, like Trevor Pena and some other dudes. But bringing over Jonte Cook, Justice Ross Simmons, it'll be interesting to see um, what that room can cook up. I like them lower A, top of B. I want to get your opinion first to where you think Syracuse should be this year.
I think I'm gonna put them in B tier.
What's here?
B.
B. Okay, I like
Um,
that.
they did win 10 games last year, going 9-3, winning their bowl game. Probably the best season Syracuse has had, definitely in our lifetime. Um, I just have a lot of questions. They lost a lot. Um, lost a quarterback. They have a new quarterback who we haven't really seen play a lot. I mean, I think he has potential to be really good, and we saw what they did with McCord last year, who we saw a lot of at Ohio State and could never really get them to where they wanted to be, and ended up being really good for Syracuse. So I do think that they're going to be a solid team. I think they might win 8 or 9 games again regular season. I just had to see it. I think that Syracuse is a team that has potential to sneak into that A tier or even S tier if they keep building upon what they've done. Um, do they get a good season out of Jonte Cook? We'll see. So they're another team that's kind of like I need to see something, and we know what type of guy Fran Brown is. He's definitely becoming one of my favorite coaches to follow in this sport. Um, I think that he's always going to field a solid team, as long as he's at Syracuse.
I can definitely agree with that. And again, we're going by the rosters right now that we have on paper. We haven't seen any of these teams play. Unfortunately, none of these programs or coaches invite us to practice or to training camp yet. So we don't get to see any of these teams practice or what they look like before the season. So we're going off based off of what we've seen in the past of these players, of these teams, and based off what we know going in to the future. So again, Syracuse could surprise us. They could have a lot more talent than we expect this year, and they could go back and win 11 games. But I agree. I think maybe a little bit of a step back, but still should be competitive. Going to a team that has not been so competitive over the past couple years, that's Virginia. Um, and I don't know if I expect them to be more competitive this year. I will say they do draw the easiest schedule in the ACC. They avoid Clemson, Miami, and SMU, and they draw Wake, Stanford, and Cal. So that's huge news for Virginia. I think their offensive line is, I don't think, I know, their offensive line is going to be the best offensive line Tony Elliott has had since he took over as head coach back in 2022. They return four starters with 182 career starts. This has been one of the most putrid, worst units in this conference. And I think it's going to be night and day difference than it has been the past couple of years. I think their defense is going to maybe improve and could potentially surprise some folks as well. I just think their offense is going to continue to struggle. Chandler Morris at quarterback, he's just a guy, in my opinion. Um, I wish I could tell you who they had out at running back and receiver. I can tell you this: they haven't had a running back rush for over 500 yards since 2019.
Oh hell no, D tier,
I could tell you that. So
500.
they have not had a running back to top 500 yards in a season, in an entire season since 2019. It is
Jesus Christ.
2025. Yeah, it's bad. So again, I think their O line will be improved. I think their defense should improve as well. Outside of that, I don't know what is. I don't know if there's much to love. I don't even know if there's much to like here on this Virginia tier team. I think the D tier is fair. I don't really know if they'll make a bowl game, but I think this is their chance. Like I said, they avoid Clemson, they avoid SMU, they avoid Miami, who are the presumed top three teams right now in that conference. So should hopefully give them a chance to, isn't that a crazy stat stuff?
That's insane. When you started saying that, I thought you were gonna say 1,000. Cause that's usually like if you're a starting back and you're pretty good. I mean, there's 12 games. Like so it would be one thing, yeah, if they had guys 700, 800 every time, but not even 500 is crazy.
Yeah, that is crazy. Um, the next team, I think, is another potentially D tier team, Boston College. Um, obviously, lost Thomas Castellanos, um, lost their top running back and their top receiving threat, their tight end Morales or Morals, forget his name. Um, their offensive line, they're only bringing back two starters, I believe. Um, defensive line loses three starters, including their All-American defensive end. Um, just not really expecting much for Boston College. Not really talented on paper. Doesn't have any names that anybody really expects to do anything much in this conference. Doesn't mean, people can't break out, people can't surprise us. But going into the season, I think Boston College is a team I don't really expect to go bowling. Um, they have a very tough schedule. They go to Michigan State, they go to Pitt, they get Clemson at home, but it's Clemson. They have to go to Louisville. They play Notre Dame at home. They play SMU at home. They play Georgia Tech at home, and then they end the year at Syracuse. So that right there is about 5 games alone that they could potentially lose, not including all the other ones I mentioned games at Stanford, against Cal, Connecticut, and so on. So Boston College, I think they're a D tier team in my book. Maybe maybe they pull some magic and they're able to get a bowl eligibility and punch up to that C tier. Any additional thoughts on Boston College? Probably not, right?
Um, I'm a little bit more positive on Boston College
Yeah.
than you are. Yeah, like
Bob, the Bill O'Brien, he got you.
yeah, like I like what he does on offense. I think they're a fun team to watch. We know that they're not the most talented, but they did go 7-6 last year.
Right.
Um, I think another year with the same quarterback is going to be really helpful. They do have a tough schedule, but I just think that you can count on this team to play a certain way. Um, I'm looking at their schedule: Fordham, Michigan State, Stanford, Cal, Pitt, Clemson, UConn, Louisville, Notre Dame, SMU, Georgia Tech, Syracuse. So that is tough. I'm looking at this schedule. I mean, Cal's not going to be the easiest. Um, Pitt is not going to be easiest. UConn, they should win that. But Louisville, I mean, even Syracuse at the end, it's going to be tough for them to go bowling. I mean, Michigan State's probably going to be better. So I don't know. I'm not going to put them in D tier yet, but I'm probably going to have to put them in bottom of C tier. And I do agree with you. I think it's most likely that they don't go bowling, honestly, because I feel like there's a lot of teams that they play. Like last year, the Michigan State game, they're probably going to lose that game this year. I think Michigan State, they have another good coach. They have another year of continuity. They have resources to bring in good players. They also have another year with their quarterback. Um, I'm just looking at the schedule. I'm like, I don't know where the guaranteed wins are. Like they start off with Fordham. Like, okay, FCS is probably a guaranteed win. Stanford is probably a guaranteed win. UConn. I mean, that's three. I mean, they would have to probably because they're probably not beating SMU or Clemson or Notre Dame.
Right.
So they gotta beat Michigan State, Cal, Pitt,
Stanford.
Louisville, Georgia Tech, and Syracuse. And I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know
those
if
are
they
some
get
tough
another
games.
three out
Some
of
of
there.
them.
Yeah, I don't know if they get another three wins out of there. So definitely bottom of C tier.
Yeah. Let's move along. Got a handful of teams left, and then we'll switch over. We'll talk a little bit about the AP poll before we wrap up the show. But before we even start thinking about that, let's talk about Cal. Cal, they've been my darlings for the past couple of years, and I've been rewarded 2 back-to-back 6 and 7 seasons for my loyalty. Now I'm kind of off of Cal, and in reality, this might finally be the year where Cal kind of takes a little bit of a step. Although I don't know how, I don't know if their defense will stay as good as it was. Obviously, they lost their their first team. Was he first team?
Who?
Hold on, give me a second. Yes, He was an All-American. Their cornerback, Noah Williams. I know they lost him, and he was the first time that he was their first consensus All-American since 2019. Um, they lost a bunch. Um, what was it? Their top five running backs left. Um,
Yes, their entire RB room hit the portal.
yes, their entire RB room hit the portal. Their quarterback, Mendoza, he hit the portal. Uh, in the wide receiver room, they brought in first team All Mountain West wide receiver Jacob DeJesus from UNLV. He was actually the bowl game MVP against Cal. But outside of him, not much experience there. But I think where um, the positives look for Cal is just for the overall like structure of what the organization is now going to be. Obviously, they hired Riverboat Ron Rivera as the new GM for the university. They also brought over Brian Harson as the new offensive coordinator. Um, Obviously, we all last time we heard from Brian Harson, it was not going good. But I think now that he could just focus back on play calling and just being an offensive kind of guy, I think he could definitely be um, a contributor to this Cal team. It's hard for me to see them replace the production at the quarterback position, and that's the guy that runs the show now. They were able to flip true freshman Jason Kiawe Segapuletele. I think that's. Sorry, I probably said that wrong. I probably botched that. But anyways, JKS. That's what we're gonna call him on this podcast. They got JKS from Oregon. They were able to flip him back to Cal. Well, I don't know if he was originally committed to Cal or not, but anyways, they got him to come back to Cal, and I think
Yeah, he
if
was
he
committed to Cal, then he flipped to Oregon, was actually like on campus
uh-huh
and like went to our bowl practices and everything,
and
and
then
then
transferred.
he ended up going back to Cal after he saw how good Dante Moore was.
Right. So yeah, so he's at Cal. Maybe if this kid could turn out to be good and wind up winning the job at some point throughout the year, maybe Cal can contend, but or can contend for a bowl game. But I don't know. I'm not really expecting much from them this year outside of their normal 6-7 win. You know, um, what do you think about Cal?
I just think they're gonna be the same like team that they've always been. You can't really expect much from them. I'm gonna put them in C tier because they do make bowl games,
Right.
but I just don't really expect much. I mean, they're gonna have a true freshman quarterback. Their entire RB room hit the portal. I mean, Jesus Christ. Um, so I don't really expect much. Um, so yeah, I'm just gonna have to put them in the C tier.
All right. Um, let's put Wake Forest in the D tier. Don't got to spend too much time on them. Um, but we will highlight a few things. Obviously, new head coach Jake Dickert um, was the defensive coordinator at Wyoming and Washington State, interim head coach at Washington State before he was then promoted to the head coach. New offensive coordinator is Rob Izell, who was a walk on at Alabama and then a coach there from 15 to 20. He was the uh, offensive coordinator most recently at South Alabama. And the defensive coordinator is Scott Hazelton, who was defensive coordinator at Michigan State from 2020 to 2023, at Kansas State in 2019, and Wyoming back in 2017 and 2018. Their GM is Will Patajes, who was at Washington the previous 3 years. Yeah, I know Wake Forest has committed to giving their NIL budget some more money, especially more money than Clawson had, um, and they were able to bring over a top 25 transfer class, but they lost 18 of their 22 starters, um, and just building a team filled with transfers and people that you are still trying to build chemistry, learning about each other. I don't think anybody expects them to win any more but the 4 games that they won last year. Um, I don't even. I'm looking through the roster right now. I don't know a single name on this roster. Stanford, kind of in the same boat, maybe even worse than Wake Forest. I will say they're returning 14 starters, but there's not much they can do in the portal, and we talk about this every offseason when it comes to Stanford. They're one of the teams that has really struggled the most from the portal era and just not being able to qualify kids into their program to get them in, and just um, uh, other obstacles in their way as well. But that being the main one, um, they have an interim head coach for 2025, that being Frank Reich, um, who was obviously a pretty successful head coach in the NFL with the Indianapolis Colts. Not so successful with the Carolina Panthers. Um, the offensive coordinator is Nate Byam, who was the tight end coach at Stanford in 2024. And in his third year at defensive coordinator is Bobby April, who was an outside linebacker coach at Wisconsin in 2021. And the other uh, co-DC is Andy Thompson, who was DC and head coach at Sacramento State. Stanford currently does not have a special teams coordinator for those that are wondering, but like I mentioned, just not talented enough. It's very hard um, to get talent into that program. Um, I think, like I said, I think Frank Reich is a good coach. I think Andrew Luck as the GM is that's a fine move as well. And I think maybe Stanford will have good football DNA, and I think maybe they'll play good football. But you need to have talent and play good football. You can't just do one or the other, especially when other teams are going to also play good football and have more talent than you. So I think Stanford joins everybody else in the D tier as well. Do you agree? Do you object? Do you have any other further thoughts on Stanford?
No, I agree with everything you said. Just like you said about the portal, and it's hard. It's hard for them to get talent, but I hope that they can build a successful program over there. With Andrew Luck kind of running things, they do have an odd situation with firing of their coach so late and then bringing in one on a 1 year deal. Um, I just I hope that this just gives them a head start on their coach search for 2026, and that they can start building this thing, because it is going to be different over there at Stanford. It's going to be tough for them to get the talent that it takes to compete, at this level.
All right. Let's close out this ACC tier list talking about Notre Dame. Now, you guys know Notre Dame obviously is not in the ACC, but because they are not in a conference and we only do tier list for the Power Four conferences, we need to talk about Notre Dame because obviously they're a factor, as they have been over the past couple years. Um, so yeah, Notre Dame 13-1 last year, obviously played in that title game, and I think they probably will be favored in majority of the games that they have scheduled this year and should be in the playoff race. Um, a whole bunch of playoff experience, bringing back 7 offensive starters, 7 defensive starters. I really think they have a chance to be special again. I think Jeremiah Love, you can argue he's the best running back in the country. They should have one of the stronger offensive lines, um, if not the best offensive line in the country from top to bottom. Defense under Marcus Freeman has always been dangerous, fast, physical, um, and I don't expect them to have any drop off coming over to this year. Um, Schedule wise, open up here at Miami, get a bye week, and then they play Texas A&M. So I think we're going to learn a lot about Notre Dame in the first 3 weeks by September 13th. We'll know all there is to know about Notre Dame. Um, they go at Arkansas, they get Boise State at home, NC State at home, USC at home. Um, play Navy at home, at Pittsburgh, Syracuse at home, and at Stanford. So um, again, they should be favored in pretty much every game on that schedule so far. I think Miami, A&M will be potentially USC will be the biggest test for them, but I think Notre Dame should probably roll throughout the schedule and dominate everybody up front. S tier.
Yeah, yeah, they're S tier. Played the national championship last year. They're probably going to be in the mix for that again this year. I mean, Marcus Freeman is one of the best coaches in the sport. He's doing a great job over there. So don't really have anything bad to say about Notre Dame. Obviously, we have questions about quarterback and what they're going to look like there, but we know their defense is going to be good. They got the best running back in the country. This team is going to be good. They're not going to have a problem being successful this year. And like I said, we've seen them make a deep playoff run. So that's something that none of the other none of the ACC teams could say. We know Notre Dame is independent, but since they do play most of their games against the ACC, we just kind of lump them in with this tier list. But um, yeah, they would be an S tier team in any conference because they've made it farther than every other team in the country except for one. So
All right. That will wrap up our ACC tier list then. Let's run through it tier by tier just to remind everybody where we have these teams placed. S tier, those are the teams that we predict to not only compete for the conference title, are probably the favorite for the conference title, and playoff favorites as well. Obviously, Notre Dame not in the ACC, so won't be competing for that title, but is definitely a playoff contender early on in the season. Clemson as well looks to be the favorite in that conference going into the year, so they are in the S tier as well. Then the A tier, we have the two teams contending to win or to get a spot in that conference title game and maybe potentially sneak into the playoffs, being SMU and Miami in that A tier. The B tier are the teams that should be solid, should win 8, 9 games, and maybe potentially sneak into that ACC championship game. We got those three teams: Syracuse, Georgia Tech, and Duke. Then we have the C tier teams. Those are the teams that we expect to be middle of the pack. Bowling, 6 wins, 7 wins. Uh, Florida State, Louisville, UNC, Pitt, NC State, Virginia Tech, and Cal. And then the D tier, those are the teams that we really don't expect much from. Probably won't be bowling. That's Virginia, Boston College, Wake Forest, and Stanford. Although, like I said, like I mentioned, Steph does believe in Boston College a little bit more than I do. So yeah, that will wrap up our ACC tier list. Um, Make sure you guys tune in for our Big Ten and our SEC tier list coming up real soon. But before we do that, let's switch gears and let's talk a little bit about this AP Top 25 poll that dropped before we go on and close out our show. Um, to run through, we'll go like five at a time. We'll start at 25 and we'll end at one. Starting at 25 is Boise State. Tennessee is 24. Texas Tech at 23. Iowa State at 22. Ole Miss at 21. Any thoughts about any of those five teams?
that the AP poll was pretty much what I expected it to be. Um, you know, Penn State really high. Clemson was really high. These are all teams that are getting a lot of hype coming into the season. I mean, I personally don't really care about the preseason poll because this thing is just going to get shuffled every week anyways. So, and by the end of the year, it'll be based on the season. So, there's a lot of teams that maybe are a little bit too high, maybe are a little bit too low, but the good thing is that we have a season to play in. So if you feel like you're too low, you can win your games and you will move up the rankings.
No, that's a fact. That's definitely a fact. Indiana is at 20. A&M is at 19. Oklahoma is at 18. Kansas State's at 17. And SMU is at 16. Then the next five, we have Florida at 15, Michigan at 14, South Carolina at 13, Illinois at 12, and Arizona State at 11. Now, starting at the top 10, Miami is 10, LSU ninth, Alabama 8th, Oregon 7th, Notre Dame 6th, Georgia 5th, Clemson 4th, Ohio State 3rd, Penn State 2nd, and Texas 1st. A couple teams that received votes but did not quite make the top 25: BYU, Utah, Baylor, Louisville, USC, Georgia Tech, Missouri, Tulane, Nebraska, UNLV, Toledo, Auburn, JMU, Memphis, Florida State, Duke, Liberty, Navy, Iowa, TCU, Pittsburgh, Army, Colorado, Louisiana. So, first poll officially out, officially dropped. These will be the numbers that are by the teams' names when week 0, week 1 kicks off. But as Steph mentioned, by week 2, a lot of those numbers will be looking real different. Um, so stay tuned. Stay tuned as it doesn't really start mattering until the college football poll drops towards the middle of the season. Now, before we close out the show here, Steph, do you have a clown of the week?
I don't know, man. I feel like there just hasn't been any clownery. I feel like we're in a clownery drought.
Season has yet to start. I'm sure once the season starts and the news is back fully on football, we will have plenty of clownery. Well, okay, that's
Did
fine. Well,
anybody
one
get
more thing we
arrested
could
for
talk
something
about.
dumb?
Say that again.
Did anybody get arrested for something dumb?
I'm sure, but
What were you saying?
I would like to mention before we close it out that ESPN and the NFL struck a deal for ESPN to acquire the rights of Red Zone. Um, and with that being said, Roger Goodell, the NFL commissioner, was on, I think, ESPN doing an interview talking about it. And he mentioned that now there is a possibility for a college football Red Zone channel that we could potentially see maybe this year or in the years past. I have YouTube TV, so I'm able to, during college football season, do the quad box and all that and watch multiple games at once. So that's awesome. But for those that don't have YouTube TV or aren't really interested in YouTube TV, most cables, most streaming services have ESPN, and I think that would be an awesome addition to college football, especially just with the sheer amount of games that are played in each time slot. I think it would be dope to have a hub that you could just sit there and watch, um, and be up to date on everything that's going on in that time slot. So hopefully that wasn't just chatter and that eventually comes to fruition. But who knows when that even would become a thing. But just something I thought we would mention before closing out the show because I think that's something that I think everybody would like to see. But all right, we appreciate all the love and support on since our return earlier this year, earlier this off season. Um, Super excited for the season to begin. We still got to get you guys this SEC and this Big Ten tier list, as well as our playoff prediction and season award prediction show, where we'll give all our preseason takes and final predictions. Um, we'll do all that before week 0 kicks off, so we can get back to our normal season preview episodes and reaction episodes once the season starts back up. So expect maybe another episode sometime this week or very early next week because we got to make up some time as we don't have much time before week 0 kicks off. So make sure you follow us on Instagram at the Pigskin Live. Um, Follow us or subscribe on whatever podcast platform you like to listen to this, whether that's Spotify podcast, Apple Podcast. Rate it a 5 star, leave a thumbs up. It just really helps us in the algorithm. Leave a comment, a review. Just share it to somebody who you think might like our show, might like college football, or share it to somebody who doesn't like college football. Maybe we'll change their mind. Yeah. Any final thoughts, Steph? Any final words you want to get off your chest today?
Mm, I'm gonna be honest. The vibes kind of took a turn while we was recording, man.
Say that.
So the vibes around Eugene, Oregon have taken a turn for the negative while we was recording, man.
Yeah, I did see the news. You can go ahead and announce it real quick.
So, true freshman, former five-star recruit, defensive back Trey McNutt broke his leg. So we know that's going to take him out for a while, maybe even the whole season. Um, he wasn't like supposed to be starting for us or anything like that this year, but he definitely could have found his way on the field, and you just hate to see that for a player. You know, you hate to see that for his development because now he's going to be out with an injury. He can't, practice. He can't lift weights. He can't, do a bunch of things that will help his development over the course of this year. So definitely just hoping that he comes back better than before from this, and that you know this doesn't become something that plays his career because we know the talent that he has, and he will end up being a really good college football player and hopefully a really good NFL player. And the other thing that happened was wide receiver Jurion Dickey was reportedly dismissed from the team. Apparently, he was like arguing with you know coaches and other players and fighting teammates or something like that. I don't know what happened. I haven't heard anything about this situation. His whole entire career, all everything coming up to now is that he was like a good person, good things like that. He just couldn't really find his way on the field. He was like a 5-star or 4-star prospect, depending on what site you're looking at. So he was a guy coming out of high school that everybody was looking at to be a really good player, and he just hasn't been able to get on the field much. So this just sucks to see. I hope that he isn't kicked off the team. Like I want him to play for us. I don't want to see any young man's life derailed like this. So I just hope that because I saw conflicting things that it was a suspension or this, and then other things saying that he was dismissed. I haven't seen an official report about this from any like known reporter or big source like that. So I hope that he's still on the team, but this just sucks to see. And again, like he's somebody that we were looking at to hopefully be on the field for us, but you know this was another position group where we have a lot of guys that we're looking at to play. Um, and there was guys that were even younger than him that were playing over him. So I don't know. Maybe this is just being frustrated with the situation. I mean, we were bringing in transfers to play, recruiting young guys that were progressing. So I just I just hope that it's not true. I hope that he's still on the team and can come back from this. But it's tough. It's tough to get dismissed, especially now because you can't transfer anybody anywhere else and play. So you have to miss this whole season and then hit the portal, which it's just a tough situation. So I just hope that everything is okay with him, in regards to football and mentally. So that's pretty much all I gotta say about that. You just hate to see situations like this.
For sure, for sure. Prayers up to everybody involved. Hopefully, people get injuries sorted out, get their life sorted out. You hate to see talented players from any university, uh, you know, and not to work out, but everybody's on their own path in life, and you never know where it's gonna take everybody. So, shout out to y'all once again for tuning in to this episode of Road to Glory. We will be back very soon, breaking down the next Power Four conference. Until then, enjoy this episode, and peace.